Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Two Spot Monkeys Live. This is episode 128. It's been a couple of weeks since we've been with you, so we're glad to be back. I'm Tom, joined as always by Jim. Jim, what's going on?
Nothing happened in the world of wrestling, so thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch you next week. Holy smokes. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. We were off last week because of the Thanksgiving holiday. I was traveling. Tom, I'm sure you had lots of family things going on, and wasn't there some football game last Saturday, maybe, I think?
Big one. Yep. There was a football game on Thursday, too, but that just wasn't so great.
Yeah, I wasn't happy about that one either, to be perfectly honest with you. So we can ignore that happened. Sorry to our Packer fan listeners, but Tom being a Lions fan, me being a Bears fan, they're not really high on either one of our lists. So yeah, would have gotten that wrong in picks for sure. I'm still doing my NFL picks on the Looney Bin forum. Shout out to the guys on the Looney Bin forum. And half the time I miss Thursday games because I just forget to make the picks. And I made it halfway through that game on Thursday, so I was able to pick the other ones, but I would have missed that pick anyway, so it didn't matter. So yeah. But anyways, there's our football talk. Let's be honest, it'll come up again here on Two Spot Monkeys. But yeah, a couple of weeks since we've been here, and a couple of pay-per-views since we've chatted as well. The last time we were with you, we made our head-to-head picks for AEW's Full Gear. And then Survivor Series happened as well. And mea culpa on my end, I never posted our picks on Twitter, but we'll talk about them here when we get to that. So apologies to anybody who's looking for those. In traveling in that, and I was traveling over that weekend, I just forgot to do it. I thought about it like at different times when I didn't have the moment to get it done, and then that didn't get it done. So sorry about that, everybody. I'm sure it ruined your entire holiday weekend that you didn't know who Tom and I were picking for Survivor Series. So, but on the quick head-to-head update, Tom and I had the exact same picks in both Full Gear and Survivor Series. So Tom, we went 6-3 in Full Gear, and 4-0 or 5-0, however you want to look at it. I gave us 5-0. For Survivor Series because we had already posted our picks, or the pick'ems had been posted in our Fantasy Wrestling League, which is what we use in this case. And for the Santos Escobar Carlito match before it got changed on Friday to Dragon Lee, which frankly I didn't get to see the match, but I'm kind of guessing nothing against Carlito, but I would have been more excited to see Santos and Dragon Lee than I would have been Santos and Carlito. So not a bad adjustment there by the WWE. So that one we both just automatically got a win. We both had Santos Escobar winning it anyway, so it doesn't really matter either direction. So 5-0 for us each on that. That puts our totals continued to be tied at 66 and 25 on the year with 3 shows to go. We've got I've got those in the wrong order. We've got Deadline coming up first, I believe, next weekend. And then Final Battle the weekend after. And then World's End at the end of the month. So, and we should be with you the next 2 weeks, so we should be able to make those picks for Deadline and for Final Battle. Final Battle we'll be making actually the morning of, since we record on Friday mornings. And that's a Friday show. World's End, we're going to end up having to post on Twitter just because it's over Christmas break and life is going to be in the way there. We might actually have a 2-week break there. 20 seconds, a little dicey, but stay with us. We're going to be here for the next few weeks, so we'll talk with you about it. We'll let you know. Tom, did you get to see either Full Gear or Survivor Series?
I saw only one match from Full Gear, and I saw nothing from Survivor Series. I was actually laughing to myself internally yesterday, Jim, because I knew we were going to reconnect today and record, and we had a lot to catch up on. And I was laughing listening back to a previous episode where we both, to an extent, admitted, just with all of the things that we have going on in our lives, the fact that we do a wrestling podcast, we're really not watching a whole lot of wrestling. I think it's a little ironic. With respect to our listeners, thank you. I hope that our opinions on what we haven't seen and what we are just responding to are enough to keep you engaged. But again, I will let you speak for yourself, but I'm going to be offering up a lot of opinion today on just results and maybe potential storyline impact, not actual in-ring cuts.
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat. Well, actually, even less of a boat. Well, flip the boat, I guess. There we go. Full Gear, I have seen nothing other than, YouTube clips and Facebook clips, Twitter clips, and that kind of thing. And I've seen a decent amount of those, I feel like. And then Survivor Series, I have watched. I'm trying to think if I even tried to start the women's war game match. I don't think I even got past like introductions before I got busy doing something else. And then I fast forwarded and watched about the last 5 or 10 minutes of the men's war game match. And then, of course, the aftermath, which we will get to in both Survivor Series thoughts and then as a bigger topic here to wrap the show today. So yeah, I'm going to be offering a lot of thoughts based on results and online opinion and, those kinds of things rather than what I've seen. It's funny. I used to be able, like, pretty much pay-per-views or premium live events or whatever you want to say, like, I was able to pretty much make destination viewing, and I think I've missed the last 2 AEW pay-per-views, perhaps. WWE, gosh, SummerSlam might be the last one I watched, like, beginning to end. I will say, next weekend's no good. Yeah, probably not going to see Deadline, if I'm being perfectly honest. Final Battle, I'm wishy-washy on. I know the first match has now been announced for Final Battle. We'll see kind of what they put together. Now that it's being shown on Honor Club for only $10. I mean, if I've got the time, I'll probably drop $10 and watch it. Because it'll be good. They always put on a good show. And then World's End, I'm right now really trying to be able to be available to watch on that evening, to kind of finish the year at least with a big event. So,
and it dawned on me, I want to say after we made our Full Gear picks, with the timing and the date of World's End, I wasn't connecting the dots at the time, but after the fact, the Lions and the Cowboys play that night. And so there's no way at all that I'm watching World's End as much as I want to. And again, I feel like a broken record because I say this with every AEW pay-per-view. It's just not materializing. So, and now with Revolution coming up in 24, it's the night before my anniversary, which I might be able to swing that. I also might not be able to swing that. So I like AEW a lot. I'm not showing it with my dollars.
Well, and even with my time, because I traveled over last weekend, I've seen about half of Dynamite, and I haven't seen any of Collision or Rampage. And I know that there's newsworthy stuff that happens there because I scored last week in our fantasy league, so I know the results. And I'm going to try still to catch all of that before I even get to Dynamite this week. So because the Continental Classic is happening, and I'm intrigued by a lot of those matchups, and I love the idea of a G1 style tournament. We talked about that last time, and so yeah, I'd like to catch all of those matches. So it's a little bit, man. I just need some time off and nothing to do, and that does not appear to be on my schedule in the next 30-60 days. So, anyways, enough whining about our time and what we can't do. Let's just pretend we have seen things, and we'll talk about them.
And again, you named it. We did not go too far along before I dropped the football. So
that is true. Football does work its way in. I could, talk about my Bears and all that, and big win we got over Minnesota on Monday night, which was one of the worst football games I've watched in a long time. But
knocked me out of a survivor pool. I was 11-0 before that night.
Oh no! Yeah. Oh goodness! Well,
the Pastronaut was throwing to the wrong team.
Yes, he was. Last Fantasy Will reference for this first 9 minutes of the show. In one of my leagues, Matthew Berry always puts out on Monday, what's the Monday Night Miracle you need? What do you need to have happen to win your fantasy matchup? And I needed Cole Kmet to score at least one more point than Justin Fields, which was like, I'm not even sure really how that happens 100%. It's a PPR, so it's possible, but like that didn't seem likely. If Kmet has a good day, Fields probably has a good day. So, and by God, he did it. Kmet scored more than Justin Fields because Fields didn't complete a whole heck of a lot. I mean, he actually wouldn't have a bad day. I could get into a whole thing on that. But because it's PPR and Kmet had, 5 catches or something like that, He actually did it. I pulled off the win, which was one of those that I just looked at, shook my head like I didn't think there was any chance I could win that game because of who was left, and yet I did. So, all right, 10 minutes in, we're going to talk wrestling. We promise. We've talked a little wrestling, but Full Gear. Let's run down the results and maybe just talk about, rather than go match by match through thoughts, because neither of us really saw it. What was the one match you saw, Tom? I'm just curious.
So I did see the Texas Death Match a couple nights ago. I was traveling for work, and I was like, if anything before Friday, like I think that's the match I most would be interested to talk about. And I thought when we left our last conversation, you were anticipating potentially watching Full Gear. I was too. I was going to potentially go to the theater, and then it just didn't materialize on that Saturday. I by hook or by crook, I just Googled it, and I found the entire match on YouTube from Discovery Plus, which it must be like an international streaming platform or point of sale for AEW outside of the United States. And it looked like it was recorded on an iPhone and then uploaded because at one point in the match, like you get like a 10% battery left, like image on the screen, and then it disappears.
So Discovery Plus probably isn't connected, I'm guessing, then to Warner Brothers. It's probably somebody naming their thing something like that.
Yeah. So that was the match, and wow.
Yeah, that's certainly what I've heard, and the clips I've seen are pretty amazing. And we had called that out as potentially match of the night, when we were talking about it. So no huge shock that happened. It would help if I was on the right page. I've got Survivor Series results up, not Full Gear. So here we go with Full Gear. On the buy-in 0 hour, 0 hour. And I don't... Is there any rhyme or reason as to when they call it the buy-in versus 0 hour, Tom? Have you figured it out?
Not at all.
Because it's not always even like double or nothing is the buy-in. No, they've been done the buy-in for some other things too. So, okay. Well, anyways, that's AEW has continuity in some things, and other things they're just throwing darts sometimes. So, and we've called them to task on that. 0 hour though started with Eddie Kingston defending the ROH World title for the 9,374th time against Jay Lethal. Not all against Jay Lethal. I just feel like Eddie Kingston has defended that title a million times. Good for him. Good for Annette in our fantasy wrestling league. Bad for everybody else. Although good for Eddie Kingston fans, of which I am one. Claudio Castagnoli over Buddy Matthews. I take it back. I did see that match, and I did see the next match as well from 0 hour. The ROH World Tag match, MJF and Samoa Joe over the Guns. Anything from 0 hour stick out to you, Tom, other than...
I mean, the big thing there was clearly Samoa Joe teaming with MJF, and then overcoming the Guns. Overcoming is the wrong statement, but...
Winning.
Yeah.
Right. And then leading to, now they're going to face each other at World's End for the world title. Although there is a story out there from a tweet that MJF posted and then deleted pretty quickly that apparently he has a torn labrum. And so that could be interesting, especially he says he's going to still work at World's End, but it kind of makes you wonder if that torn labrum needs surgery or anything, does that...
And I know you said you aren't caught up on Dynamite, so I know you're still working on a week ago's Dynamite, and you haven't seen this Wednesday. He comes out last week. I'm sorry, say that again.
I've seen some pictures and clips and things from this week just because.
Yeah. So he came out with a cane last week. He came out with a cane again this week. Last week, Samoa Joe basically said, "You're my property, and when you're my property, I'm going to make sure you're protected. So like I'm your shadow in essence from now until World's End." Well, this past Wednesday, MJF has a really decent promo. He's had better. He's had worse. And then he breaks the cane over his leg and appears to be walking fine. But I've also seen the reports of the labrum injury. And then the masked men attack him. And Joe makes the save. And then there's like... Think of like I want to say Project 161, but also not Project 161. The screens go black. There's like typewriter print on the screen, and they challenge MJF and Joe to a match next week, and they agree. So it's two of the masked men against Joe and MJF next week. MJF accepts, and Joe seems a little bit upset. I actually was watching Dynamite Live, but I had to take a phone call during that segment, so I missed some of the narrative. But that's how that's setting up. So it's interesting. So I guess seeing MJF in the ring next week in whatever capacity will probably begin to tell the story towards World's End.
Right. So he's got a hip injury from the Jay White match, which, you know, is why he was walking with Kane, and now he's got the labor in the shoulder, you know. I mean, but he's been working a, you know, crazy pace. So no shock that he might be a little bit banged up as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see next week, and hopefully I'm all caught up by next week so I can just be, you know, trying to watch the shows of the week instead of everything else. Then when we got to the main show, you had Sting, Darby Allin, and Adam Copeland over Christian Cage, Luchasaurus, and Nick Wayne, or as they are later rechristened last week, Kill Switch and the Prodigy, Nick Wayne. Yeah, one of those names I like, and the other one I'm like, yeah, Kill Switch. Okay, well, I guess it's better than Luchasaurus. I don't know, maybe. AEW International title match, Orange Cassidy defends over Jon Moxley. Women's world title match, as we predicted, Timeless Toni Storm over Hikaru Shida to win the title. The world tag title ladder match, Starks and Big Bill kept them over LFI, FTR, and Kings of the Black Throne, Malachi Black and Brody King. The TBS title match, Julia Hart won the belt by defeating Chris Statlander and Sky Blue. The Texas Death match, as you mentioned, Swerve Strickland over Hangman Adam Page. And I'll finish the results and then I'll ask you a question. The title shot versus the Golden Jets Future on the line match. The Golden Jets win and get a world tag title shot. Maybe anytime if they're choosing. I don't know. That part's been really weird, I know, as it's played out. But the Golden Jets over the Young Bucks. And then the AEW world title match, MJF over Jay White. So everything I've heard, another banger of a show, you know, all of those things. The question I was going to ask you there in the middle, Tom, is there anybody hotter in pro wrestling? Let me rephrase that, because yes, the answer is yes. Is there anybody hotter in AEW than Swerve Strickland right now?
I don't think so. I think he's in the yeah, I was gonna call it the Collision Classic, and I was like that. Yes, he's in the Continental Classic, and I think that's going to have an opportunity to raise other people up. Right now, because he's in it and because of what he's been doing, I don't think so. I honestly don't think so.
Yeah, and it feels like they're leaning into him a little bit. Like there's a part of me that wouldn't be totally shocked if he won the Continental Classic. Like he's in the handful of guys that I think could come out of it as the winner. He's not the most likely winner in my eyes, but he's definitely in the handful of folks that I think could end up as the eventual winner and Triple Crown champion, apparently, as you and I have been messaging about trying to figure out what to do with the Fantasy Wrestling League, as apparently it is a Continental title after all. And now also, though, part of a Triple Crown title. That's another story that maybe we'll just get into in the weeks to come. But
yeah, I was really happy with the breakout. I think maybe there was a little bit of surprise about some of the people that were in that. I know we were starting to prognosticate just a touch, but not too much. But yeah, the Blue League is fantastic. The Gold League is.
Can you rattle off who's in? Because I have to look it up again to remember.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually really liked. I watched the whole thing on. Like they streamed it on a couple of different places. I watched it through Facebook. Blue League is Danielson, Eddie Kingston, Andrade, Brody King, Claudio, and Daniel Garcia. Like every single one of those matches and matchups in that entire league, like I am front row popcorn eating with all of those. And it started last week, but they both delivered. And tomorrow on Collision, we've got 3 more. Including Bryan Danielson's first match. And of course, it happens against Eddie Kingston, who comes off of a loss. Oh my gosh, just great storytelling. Fantastic. Gold League, Jon Moxley, Swerve Strickland, the aforementioned, Roosh, Mark Briscoe, Jay Lethal, and Jay White. I feel like you could have done something different with Mark Briscoe and Jay Lethal. However, I will say this. They both have had really strong showings in the first 2 weeks. So I'm gonna swallow my words in that space for now.
And for me, Jay Lethal is the bigger sore thumb maybe for that one, because I just feel like they haven't really, to me, done anything to make Jay Lethal feel important. I know he's been involved in storylines. I know he's been involved in things. I understand that. But like, and there's always one or two in these kinds of tournaments where you're like, well, yeah, they're there to eat the losses for the most part. And I think Jay Lethal's probably, if he wins one match in this tournament, that might be the high point for him in the tournament. Briscoe, I don't feel as much that way about, just because I feel like they were trying to get behind him before his injury. I still think his future is probably a little more bright in Ring of Honor. But that pigeonholes him a little bit too. So maybe it is good that he's here in AEW and in this. I'm thrilled that Roosh is in this thing, because I think Roosh has been criminally underused in AEW. And we can say that about a number of folks. So we have said that about a number of folks in AEW. So I'm really glad Roosh is in this and getting to rub elbows with guys like Mox and Jay White and some others. I think that Roosh White match has already happened.
That was the first week. Yes,
that was what I thought.
Yep. So real quick, back to this topic, Continental Classic, and then just want to jump back to wrap up Full Gear, and I just want to poke at like our picks that we got wrong and just kind of unpack that for just a moment.
Yep.
So again, you said Swerve is, and I agree with you, arguably the hottest, if not one of the hottest acts in AEW currently right now, undisputable without a doubt, coming especially off the Texas Death Match. In that Gold League, I did not anticipate him potentially coming out as one of the winners, but I do agree with you that there's a good shot. I was thinking Jay White. However, spoiler, Jay White loses to Swerve on Wednesday, so Swerve definitely has now the leg up. So that's kind of cool. But again, you've got 5 matches, you've got 15 points max potential. We haven't had our first draw. We're going to get a draw, which is only 1 point per person. So that'll be interesting. Coming out of the Blue League, I mean, so like let's stick with what you said. If your prediction, I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire and lock in on this. If it's Swerve, who do you want to see him face coming out of the Blue League?
See, I don't know if I would pick Swerve, to be honest. I think he's in the conversation, but I wouldn't say that. I think Mox wins that side of the tournament. Am I right? Mox is in gold. Yeah, he is.
Yes.
Yeah. So here's the thing. When it first was announced, I understood things from the way Kingston had talked, that Eddie Kingston was going to be defending the Ring of Honor World title and the New Japan Strong title in every one of his matches in that league. So in my mind, he was winning that side, because then it would become, he would be in the finals defending his Ring of Honor and New Japan Strong title against whoever came out of the Gold League. And then the Continental title was a part of that. It becomes the Triple Crown that Tony Khan has talked about it becoming. So I kind of thought, that earmarks that Kingston is going to the finals. Even if he lost his belts along the way and then regained them. Well, he couldn't regain them unless there was a separate match. Anyways.
And in that space there, put a pin right in that, right? So when this becomes the Triple Crown on December 30th, will there be independent title defenses of individual belts in that? Yeah. We've already had an offline conversation. Again, sorry, Fantasy Wrestling League once more. What is this going to look like for Fantasy Wrestling League in 2024?
Yes. Yeah. And it could be a nightmare, especially since it's not even being established until the 30th. So we're going to have to try to make some decisions here in the next couple of weeks in that world. Not that that's most of our listeners' problems. Although Annette, when you're listening to this, I don't see a 1, so she might not be listening live. But she'll obviously, and a few other listeners who I know are in our league will be very interested to see where that plays out as well. But so that was my thought in the blue side. Now that it's not that way, like in some ways, I still want Kingston to come out of that, because if he's going to then lose the Ring of Honor and New Japan Strong titles to, whoever wins this tournament becomes those champions. Like, I want him to lose that match where that happens. I don't want him to not be in that. And then, it's Danielson and Mox or something like that. And just Kingston kind of hands the titles over to the winner. Like, I don't love that. So part of me thinks Kingston still, but it's really hard to pick against Bryan Danielson on the blue side.
Yeah, so here's the interesting thing: if it were to go kind of as you're maybe potentially outlining, Kingston Mox, which would be awesome.
Which was what I was thinking.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong though. Like, because they had their issue with the big match, the Stadium Stampede at All In, but then they never came back and had like a one-on-one. Like, and they have issues, but they're like also friends. So it was like,
Right.
it was like
I feel like the story there would have just been phenomenal.
yeah, there's been a lot of periphery there, but they've never gone head to head because of their mutual respect or friendship. So yeah, so that could tie another layer in here. I was thinking Jay White on the gold side, and then I was thinking Bryan Danielson for sure. At the same time, I think Bryan Danielson is going to be one of those guys where you have to watch him carefully because he's already said, like, I'm looking forward to All In next year. This is my last kind of active year of being an in-ring performer. And then, and selfishly, I was like, who better to elevate themselves in this tournament than like Daniel Garcia? I'm not necessarily saying I would say Daniel Garcia, Jay White. I think Claudio Jay White actually would be really good. So that would be kind of where I think I'd land if you were to say pick today and lock a pick in.
Yeah. And Danielson, I also feel like because we know Danielson has some sway in creative and in other ways, turns out he was on the discipline committee that dealt with the CM Punk situation. So I could also see Danielson being the guy who says, I don't need or want to be in the finals of this. I want to help elevate the Daniel Garcias, the Brody Kings, even Claudio. I mean, it's hard to elevate Claudio from where he is, but you could. I could see him wanting to do that too, where, and tell a different story with him than his run to winning this thing. I just love the interplay stories that are there. And then as they book this thing out, as wins and losses happen, and you start to need to tell the story of, this is a must-win match for wrestler X, to stay in the hunt, to still have a shot to get to World's End. I just think it's going to be really cool. What I don't want them to do, and because it seems, if you've seen some of the stories this week, UT Marshall has, resigned from AEW effective the end of the year, so he's moving on. There are stories out there that part of it is that he sees AEW going in what he or someone has called a more New Japan centric match based versus story based direction, which I don't dislike totally. I still want the stories, tie it all together, and so far they're doing that. But I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that all plays out. I was saying, don't do the New Japan thing, and at World's End you have the Continental Classic finals, and then you take your other 10 guys and put them in a 10-man tag against each other just for no apparent reason at all. Please don't do that. I hate when New Japan does that. Or that has like a series of trios matches just with the other people. Please don't. So other Full Gear thoughts? I know we got a little bit of time here. We got two more things to hit. So
I know. And I had one more comment on Continental Classic. So the way they've already said is like the two individuals in each league will have like that kind of decision match on that last Dynamite before, and maybe Collision on that Friday before World's End. So it's interesting because like when I think of Jay White and Swerve happening 2 nights ago, like I would have thought that's definitely one of the ones that the matches that happen later. It's going to be interesting to see how those matches continue to evolve in the weeks to come.
Absolutely. I'm loving it already, and I've only seen little bits, but I've, again, seen results and know some things. Love to watch it play out. You and me, we love our tournaments. So
yes, yeah. So Full Gear, just to look at the 3 things that we got wrong. We both picked the Young Bucks. We were both wrong there. We both picked Hangman Page. We were wrong there. And we both picked Mox, and we were wrong there. Again, the Mox thing kind of makes sense. It establishes Orange Cassidy. Mox goes here into the Continental Classic, and I think he's Teflon in my opinion. He doesn't ever need to be rebuilt, but this is a great way for that opportunity. The Young Bucks, the story is they're taking a little bit of a hiatus. They definitely are heels, and they're going to be coming back with maybe a different faction in the new year with a new approach, which is cool. Again, that's good evolution for them in my opinion. And then Hangman Page. He had won the Texas Death Match against Mox earlier this year, so having him lose this when it's kind of been his match of choice and maybe a spot where you could have built a longer-term story, to have him lose, and especially because he was the one going for really the most revenge because Swerve had broken into his house when his family wasn't there, and he went and by where his son sleeps. Pretty unbelievable. I will say this. I did want to make sure that I went and saw this match if I could. I was, again, like I said, fortunate enough to find it on YouTube and watched it. I had seen enough of the clips that I was a little desensitized to it. I can only imagine had I watched this match live, I would have been popping out of wherever I was sitting or wherever I was standing. There's one spot where Swerve gets a bag of glass, shards of glass, and it does not appear to be very broken down. There's a number of pieces broken down. There's one part that kind of looks like the end of a broken bottle, and it's like the bottom side, the base of the bottle. He lays this on Paige, and he does a 450, taking the full brunt of his front on the glass on Paige. The fact that there was no worse cuts on people's bodies in this bout with all of the weaponry was unbelievable.
Yeah. I too wish I could have seen it with, like, if I go back and see it now, knowing who wins and all of that, I wish I could have just watched it as it happened. Life just didn't quite lead that way on Saturday, where it made sense that I would watch that show. So, and that's okay. Life is life. It happens. Survivor Series. Then the following week, we were just perfect, Tom, because we are just so smart. But Survivor Series, the War Games match, the women's War Games match, Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, and Shotzi over Damage Control of Bayley, Asuka, Io, and Kairi Sane. The Intercontinental title match, Gunther beat Miz, not a shock there. Santos over Dragon Lee, we kind of talked about that a little bit at the very beginning. The women's world title match, Rhea over Zoe Stark. And then the men's War Game match was Cody's team, Cody, Seth, Sami Zayn, Jey Uso, Randy Orton over the Judgment Day and Drew McIntyre. So let's save the ending just for a moment. Anything... I'm thinking primarily we're going to talk about the two War Games matches, if anything, but anything that struck you out of those two matches, Tom, or one of the others, if you want.
So nothing struck me. I mean, clearly we both picked across the board all correct matches. So the booking followed what our minds thought it would do. I wrestled with the idea of wanting to watch this before we recorded today, and time this week just didn't allow for that. So I probably will have it on in the backgrounds today because I do want to see it. It's one of those things where, and it was really funny because I was listening to an interview on AEW Unrestricted with Chris Hero, who is part of the kind of the coaching team in AEW now and has been for a while, and is the matchmaker for West Coast Pro Wrestling, and that's been getting a lot of buzz in Northern California. He made the comments related to like his role with West Coast Pro, that he makes it a priority where once they have a show, he and the owner, who clearly employs Chris Hero for this role, they watch the show immediately the next day. So they can take the pluses, the minuses, and the other things and use that to grow that into the next phase. Now, granted, you and I are not professional wrestling employees or bookers or whatnot, but I was taking that analogy that Chris Hero outlined in that comment and thinking about it with related to any pro wrestling. Like if you and I both know this, and we talk about muting social media and just making time. If we don't watch the event like live or within maybe 24 hours, spoiler free, the likelihood of us getting to that diminishes even greater than most things. And so I make that statement saying that I still want to have Survivor Series on today. Again, I'll be having like one eye on other duties and one eye probably head back and forth on the screen. So I am interested to see it because I want to see how it plays out, specifically the War Games matches. The other three matches I'm hit or miss on. I am excited, and I was excited about the prospect of Dragon Lee versus Santos Escobar. But beyond that, it kind of is what it is and was what I thought it would be. How about yourself?
Yeah, same thing. If I go back and see anything, and like I said, I'm still trying to catch up on AEW, so it seems unlikely it would be the War Games matches because I love War Games to begin with. And those were the two matches that clearly this show was built around. I guess from Monday night, it seems like we might get another Gunther Miz match. Why?
Perhaps something happened in that match that justifies it. Again, I guess I'll be paying attention to that, perhaps.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see, because from what I read quickly of the results, nothing struck me. But okay. Rhea Zoe, nice showcase for Zoe to be able to be in there and rub elbows with somebody like Rhea. That's great. And if there was a third match I went to watch, it would be Santos and Dragon Lee, because I like both of those guys a lot. And I'm glad to see them getting some focus a little bit for each one of them. So, yeah. So it went the way I thought it would. Obviously, we had our picks right. There was a little bit of me that did think about picking the Judgment Day in the men's War Games match, because I thought maybe Randy Orton would lay out Jey Uso. I know they seem to bury their thing on Monday night. But Randy made it very clear in his promo at the beginning Monday night, because I have watched that he was coming for every member of the Bloodline. He made it very clear to say every member. And now I don't know, maybe that was an inference to Paul Heyman, that he's going to lay him out with an RKO, which he will at some point, and that'll be fun. But my mind immediately went to Jey and Sammy, because Jey and Sammy did an awful lot to Randy Orton 18 months ago. So I know they shook hands and they hugged and they said, Randy said, everything's cool. He's Randy Orton. Jey Uso's eating an RKO at some point. It may not be anytime real super soon, but he's eating an RKO for what he did. And I think Sammy's probably got one coming too. And it may be at the same time, one right after the other kind of thing. Because he's Randy Orton. He's not staying happy baby face forever. That's not, although I will say Randy Orton looks jacked. Holy smokes. That guy got himself in some shape while he was gone. Interesting that a guy who had back fusion surgery is still doing the RKO as much as he is, landing on his back. I didn't know if they were going to go back maybe to the punt kick or something, it's kind of back to, when Shawn Michaels came back after his back injuries. And everything he did that he landed on his back made you feel like you were like, like even more, because about the real life thing that happened to his back. I felt that way when I watched Randy hit these RKOs the first couple nights back. Like, hope he gets up. Everything's okay.
Well, with that being said, and even more so from the Shawn Michaels situation, modern medicine has evolved so much. That's got to be a factor here.
Yeah, absolutely. So be interesting to see. I'm glad Randy's back. That gives us another top tier guy to have stories with in WWE. And WWE is so red hot right now. And speaking of top guys, I know we're on a little low on time, but we can't not hit it. The music hits at the end of the night. CM Punk is back in WWE. The description I put on this episode on our YouTube, and I'll try to remember to put it on the podcast, was that we gave our thoughts on Full Gear and Survivor Series and a very cold day down under. And I titled it Monkeys Freeze Over, because hell froze over on Saturday night last week. And CM Punk is back in WWE. Gave a promo on Monday that I thought was fine. I mean, it wasn't a pipe bomb by any means.
Yeah, I was underwhelmed. I was honestly underwhelmed. As your feeling is about to cave in.
It did sound like that, yes. I was like, holy, apparently the oven is being dropped from the roof. So part of me thinks that it was very much by design by Triple H, even though he wasn't there on Monday night. Bruce Pritchard ran the show, whatever. That's, like let's just get him in and make sure. And, although I did not grasp Punk's coming in as a babyface. He got the huge pop. He's going to be a babyface at least for a while. At some point, he probably goes heel because he's CM Punk and he's a great heel. Why do the Blackhawks line? A Blackhawks fan in the Predators barn. Like, you turned the crowd, and I'm not sure he ever fully got them back either. So that was a weird, but again, it's a very CM Punk thing to do. Like, he just wanted it, so he did it.
That's the thing. He is authentically himself for all of the good and all of the bad, and I think the bad outweighs the good. The promo was soft in my opinion. The most telling part of the promo came at the end of the show when the bump comes and the music's on. When he has not the mic and he goes, "I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make money." Like, I immediately went back to thinking CM Punk in a suit in 2000 whatever in Ring of Honor when he signs his WWE contract on the Ring of Honor world title. Like, I don't think that there's been and there may have been, right off my recall, there hasn't been a character in any professional wrestling a program or organization where they are literally like, this is a business. I'm here to make money. This is why I do what I do. Like, it's always kind of an underlying statement, but there's never been someone who's like, I'm here to be like the Donald Trump of professional wrestling and be a billionaire. Sorry to mention Donald Trump of the only people I could have said of Warren Buffett or someone else. But you get my point, and so that's just really interesting that it could be a new way of presenting the character that we've not necessarily seen. I mean, this is not the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase type of deal at all.
I was gonna say the only person I thought of was JBL, but that still was a little. I mean, that was like massive character, right? I mean, but he talks about winning and making more money and that sort of thing. But I get what you're saying, and yeah, I don't expect him to take direct or even too indirect or too inside shots at AEW, because I assume there is still some legalities between AEW and Punk. I know Tony Khan said legally he can't talk about it because somebody wanted to know his reaction. Of course they did. And he said legally he can't talk about that. So I didn't expect him to say, you know, I went to a place that was run by children and, you know, or anything like that. Like, and that's fine, but just be CM Punk. You know, I thought his line about, you know, it may sound corny, but he's home. Okay, fine. You know, kind of the Cody Rhodes, I guess, version of, you know, of I had to go away and then come back sort of thing. But Cody Rhodes and CM Punk are so different characters that I don't necessarily need the same story or the same promo from them. Well, Cody, it worked.
And beyond just the character, they're different people. Like Cody actually feels like a genuine, like good, down to earth human. CM Punk, no, sorry, no. I think you're just a jerk, dude. Like, and again, you're an entertaining jerk, and you clearly move the needle, which is why he's back here. But wow.
So, you know, in our last couple of minutes here, it seems like CM Punk, Seth Rollins is where they're headed first, which is interesting because do you put the belt on Punk? Do you switch it to Damian Priest at some point and get the belt out? Because you don't need the title for CM Punk and Seth Rollins. Does not need the title. So I could see the Money in the Bank coming in there. Drew McIntyre wants another shot. Maybe he wins, you know, maybe Punk causes it. I don't know. But Punk Rollins seems to be the first program. They've already talked that there are plans for CM Punk Roman Reigns. Duh. Like
that'll be very fun, I think. That's actually I'm looking forward to that big time. Yeah.
And then the report from Fightful yesterday, Fightful Select, as Sean Ross Sapp always says, best $5 in the business, and I give him $5 every month because I do think it's worth it. There is hope that they can finally get to CM Punk versus Stone Cold Steve Austin at some point, which Punk going full straight edge heel against the beer drinking Stone Cold. I know it won't be the match it probably once will, although both of those guys would find a way to make it. I mean, Stone Cold and Kevin Owens, I thought was pretty good for what it was. You know, they used a lot of plunder and things, which is smart with Steve at this point. I think the match will be fine, but man, the build and the promos for those two will be really, really fun if it ever does come to fruition. Anybody else that you're really looking forward to seeing Punk work with outside of kind of those three obvious, you know, names?
That's a great question, and not something I had thought a lot about, to be quite honest with you. And so right now in this conversation, I would need more time, to be honest, to come up with a couple of honest other ideas. My juxtaposing that statement is, how often do you think we're going to see Punk in the ring?
I think fairly often. I mean, he was in AEW. He was working pretty often. I think he wants to wrestle. I don't think he's doing the part-timer gig.
Okay. My wondering in that space relates back to the Roman Reigns treatment. We've seen what Roman Reigns gets, and I feel like CM Punk is both selfish enough and smart enough to say that's the type of deal that I want.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be shocked if he does. I just haven't heard anything yet. Although that would give him a great point in the promo. If he's there every week, basically, and Roman isn't, like, you know, hey, I could have gotten your deal, but I didn't because I love doing this and I love what I, you know, and I mean, like, the promo starts to write itself at that point.
Yeah.
And I'm not anywhere near as good promos as CM Punk. So, that could work. Not that nobody's ever gone there with Roman. John Cena went there with Roman. Others have gone there. I mean, it's a valid argument or point against Roman Reigns.
Oh, and I feel like, again, it's been 10 years since CM Punk's been here. I'm sure there were interactions with Seth Rollins, with Roman Reigns, other people that are still around, but it feels fresh. It feels new just because of the evolution of those characters and those personalities in the time.
Well, and there's the video of Seth Rollins, flipping him off after Survivor Series, and Rollins mentions him in a promo. I know on Monday I haven't seen that promo, but I've seen, a post about it. And so it sounds to me, from what you read, like Rollins and Punk, they're not going to be sending each other Christmas cards. They don't necessarily like each other as human beings. But I think Seth Rollins and CM Punk are both smart enough to work together. And I think that's the difference from AEW to WWE is I hope that, and apparently there may be some behavioral clauses in Punk's contract, which they'd kind of be stupid not to have in there after what happened in AEW. I hope that they're smart enough and Punk has learned enough to know, hey, you don't have to like everybody, but you work together and make a whole bunch of money together. And if he could have ever figured that out with the Elite in AEW, I think they could have made a ton of money together. And there's a whole lot of what ifs that'll never, or at least aren't going to happen anytime soon in AEW. And that's water under the bridge, unfortunately, at this point. I will say, really quick figure thing. I know we got to get off the line, but I was watching that CM Punk LJN from AEW. You and I had talked about it in the past. And I thought, I'm going to wait for Black Friday and see, what it was. It was $20.99. And I was like, Cyber Monday is their bigger deal. I'm just going to wait for Cyber Monday. Well, that was stupid because he came back on Saturday. So they raised the price for the dumb thing. Not Cyber Monday, it was $24.99. Although I was also waiting to see what they did on Cyber Monday with the Usos 2-pack at ringside. The Ultimates look really, really sharp. And they dropped that $5. So CM Punk went up $5. The Usos came down $5. I should have just ordered it Black Friday. It would have been the same amount of money. But those will be here tomorrow. So I'll have my CM Punk LJN.
Speaking of CM Punk, so I saw his AEW Supreme figure, which is pretty sweet. Yeah, like wasn't ready to plunk down $42 for it yesterday. That being said, the setup, what it comes with, all of the articulation components, and now that he's no longer there, again, will Hell freeze over twice? Will he ever go back to AEW? I'm just kidding. Too soon.
Yeah, and we can talk more figures. I picked up a bunch of stuff. There are things that I've pre-ordered have been coming in, and I got that AEW 4-pack, the Amazon 1 of 3000, with MJF, Orange Cassidy, Wardlow, and Thunder Rosa. Happened to catch that when it was available on Amazon. I had a $50 Amazon card, so I got it for $30 out of my pocket, which was nice. So anyways, we can talk more figures maybe in the next 2 weeks. I've got some stuff I could show off. So, but we got to wrap things up here. Punk, hell is frozen over. He's back. I'm sure we'll be talking about that more in the weeks to come, as well as his first stories start to play out. And next week, join us for conversation around that in AEW, but also picks for NXT's Deadline, which is starting to line up as a interesting show. I think the Iron Survivor has some interesting young names in it, so we'll see how those start to play out as well, and what we think might happen on that show. So, Tom, real quick strategy question: should I drop Dominic Mysterio because he's losing that belt to Wesley, isn't he?
Oh yeah,
I think he is. So might have to do that. So, anyways, everybody have a great week. We will see you back here next week, back here at Two Spot Monkeys Live.